Neil Hansen has spent the past 4 days in the cardiac unit of San Francisco's El Camino Hospital. The experience has been made slightly less stressful thanks to the hospital's in-house comedy channel, featuring episodes of old favourites like I Love Lucy. It has lifted Mr. Hansen's spirits during his hospital stay. The 24-hour humour channel is the brainchild of attending pathologist Dr. Josh Sickle. After making his first foray into stand-up comedy 8 years ago, he became interested in how humour could be used to improve the health and well-being of patients. Dr. Sickle hopes to further develop his humour and healing programs at El Camino Hospital, providing patients with much-needed laughter during times of sickness. People seem to be enjoying it, he said, and the exciting thing for me is I'm not reading it from an instruction manual. Four-year-old Amy Morell is one of 12 children who have had the so-called XMR scan at Guy's Hospital in London. Amy had the scan before the last of her 3 open-heart operations. Normally, a cardiac catheter test is used to check heart function. This involves X-rays, of which the same dose is twice as likely to cause cancer in children as adults. So doctors are keen to find an alternative. But MR has other benefits too. It's able to give doctors information about the function of the heart and about blood flow in the main vessels, which is very important to the extra information that they get. The team expects to soon dispense with X-rays altogether and rely solely on MR, and for adults' hearts too. Because MR shows up blood flow so clearly, it could help in a new treatment that dispenses with the cardiac stents widely used to keep narrow arteries open. An alternative way is to try and use a gene therapy approach to get extra collateral vessels to grow. The joint team from Guy's Hospital and King's College in London pioneered the use of MR in young hearts. The red desert sands of the Australian outback are one of the few unexplored resources of modern medicine. Aborigines have lived there for over 60,000 years, gathering a vast reservoir of bush medicine lore, none of which has been extensively tested. Aboriginal elders say they have a cure for many ailments. Even warts can be killed off with the help of the thorns of the dead finish bush. The toxins on the end of the thorn prevent further growth of the warts. Elders like Forrester are adamant that their traditional information should not be handed to anyone. In the last 2 centuries, many scholars have published cultural information from Indigenous people without asking for their approval first. This has stopped Aborigines from sharing a lot of their knowledge, especially details on bush medicine. Researchers at Macquarie University in Sydney are trying to change this. They've started a long-reaching ethnopharmacological study of Australian medicinal plants aimed at documenting the medical knowledge of elders in the Yagul community. They are different to previous scientists. They are working with Indigenous communities to protect their intellectual rights. They are scientifically testing a wide range of plants that Aboriginal elders have said are particularly potent. Researchers are working on well-known plants such as the leafless ballart, as well as some previously unidentified specimens. Joanne Jamie, senior researcher of this project, says their team was approached by the Aboriginal community in a bid to document information that was being lost. They're hopeful of finding new cures for illnesses, but as important to them is ensuring their produce will be internationally patented. Dr. Franklin at the University of Cambridge is working with colleagues at the Dana-Farber Institute at Harvard University and has discovered that a gene called OLIG1 plays a key role in the process of myelin production. Myelin is like an insulator for the nerves and protects them from damage. In multiple sclerosis, MS breaks down, causing nerve damage and symptoms ranging from memory loss to immobility. So far, experiments have confirmed the role of the gene only in the laboratory, and the researchers stress the finding does not mean a new treatment for multiple sclerosis is just around the corner. Dr. Franklin is encouraged, though, that better understanding of the genetics of myelin repair could ultimately produce an effective means of actually treating multiple sclerosis rather than just controlling the symptoms. The second approach to treating MS is to try and repair the damage that has already occurred. So the sort of work they are doing now in the laboratory is the basis which over the next 10 to 15 years or so will realise itself as new therapeutic developments. Once nerves are damaged, though, they cannot be repaired, so finding ways to prevent nerve damage in MS is the most promising direction for research into this debilitating condition that affects 2.5 million people worldwide. This is how 46-year-old John Rochat walked before undergoing a new procedure to replace damaged cartilage in his knee. Rochat is one of 400 patients who have received a new device called the Unispacer that promises to end the agony of early-stage osteoarthritis. This device fits between the knee bones and replaces damaged cartilage, preventing the surrounding bones from rubbing against each other. It's kept in place by the tension of the ligaments. It's a delaying mechanism for more extensive knee replacements. Dr. Richard Halleck says the new procedure, which is performed under general or regional anaesthesia in less than an hour, can help restore a patient's active lifestyle. Health professionals are trying all kinds of things to get kids up and moving these days. Childhood obesity rates are soaring, and one of the latest efforts to fight the fat includes exercise videos for kids. Bodybuilding champion Cheryl Silich has produced exercise videotapes for kids aged 3 years and older, based on the story of the Wizard of Oz. She believes the videos are a useful alternative if a child doesn't have a safe place outside to play, or if an exercise program at school has been cut. While exercise videos can supplement a child's fitness, they may not have the intended outcome, says Dr. Stephen Heimsfeld, Deputy Director of the New York Obesity Center. Children and parents give the notion of exercising to videotapes mixed reviews. Some think it's a great idea, while others believe playing outside does the trick. Silich hopes the videos will encourage kids to get off the couch. More than 6 million lives are lost each year from heart attacks and strokes, and they could be saved with simple, preventative methods, according to the World Health Organization. High blood pressure is an increasing problem in developing countries, and the World Health Organization is urging governments to adopt cheap, population-based measures to cut disease rates, for instance by cutting high levels of salt in manufactured food and discouraging smoking. The World Health Organization points out that action on salt intake slashed stroke rates in Japan by 70%. The agency says modern drug treatments to lower cholesterol and blood pressure are becoming a realistic option, even in poor countries. The report found that the lowest international price for combination therapy was just $14. It is getting increasingly affordable, even in the developing world. Data on cardiovascular risk worldwide and strategies to combat it form part of many reports released by the WHO. It's an issue that affects whole populations. They'll help keep your children healthy. They'll help you maintain healthy hair, skin and nails, and they'll help you fight the ravages of aging. People don't really see vitamin and mineral supplements as miracle drugs, but there's enough belief in their efficiency to make supplying them a multi-million-dollar business. And if vitamins are good, more must be better, right? Walk through any health food store and you'll have no problem finding supplements offering 5,000 times the minimum daily requirement or more. The view is that people should be allowed to take as much as they want as long as it is safe. But Michael Baker, an attorney for British supplement makers, says safety isn't the only question. He says European countries believe that if you're taking more than a certain amount, then you're doing it for a medical reason. So a harmonisation point must be found. Harmonisation is jargon for setting regulations on which everybody can agree. In this case, the science bureaucrats in Brussels say they're coming up with a directive that sets maximum safety levels for each vitamin or mineral. In theory, that's okay with health food advocates. A campaign has been launched by various charity and health organisations to raise public awareness on lung cancer in Britain. The drive to inform comes from doctors, care workers and organisations such as the Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation and the Macmillan Cancer Relief. Roy Castle was a popular presenter on British television for many years who died of lung cancer in 1994. His foundation claims to be the only charity in the world dedicated to defeating lung cancer. The foundation regularly visits people suffering from cancer and offers support to families unable to cope. The group also organises regular meetings at their Liverpool headquarters where doctors and healthcare professionals can explain about the latest developments in treating and preventing the disease. One new patient is diagnosed with lung cancer every 15 minutes in the UK. 80% of people die within a year of being diagnosed. The Roy Castle Lung Cancer Foundation say there aren't that many in the way of lung cancer patient advocates out there because survival is so bad for this disease. The foundation's trying very hard to recruit more patients, more carers who will help in creating a voice and create a strong message for lung cancer and ultimately for improving services and improving the outcomes for this disease. Whilst researchers continue to try to find medical help, the campaigners say that patients are 40 times more likely to survive if the disease is detected in the early stages. And that's the message they want more people to hear. Developed in the UK, Gleevec is giving new hope to sufferers of a deadly form of leukemia known as chronic myeloid leukemia, or CML. As well as producing remarkable results, Gleevec helps CML patients live a normal life whilst undergoing treatment. The drug has none of the severe side effects that are associated with chemotherapy. Cancer experts say that Gleevec is producing some of the most exciting results they have ever seen. Professor Gordon McVeigh of Cancer Research in the UK says not in 25 years as a cancer doctor has he seen anything so impressive in trials. Gleevec knocks out genetically damaged cells, leukemia cells, in 2/3 of all the patients who have it. CML is linked to an abnormality known as the Philadelphia chromosome, created by an exchange of genetic material between two normal chromosomes. The fused gene produces a protein that triggers the abnormal white cell production in CML. Gleevec is a chemical which binds to a crucial part of the protein, blocking its ability to stimulate abnormal cell growth. It's the first of a new class of drugs that target the unique nature of a particular cancer cell. Dentists in Britain are using a treatment for dental decay that does away with the need for drilling and filling. The treatment uses ozone gas to kill the bacteria causing decay, allowing healthy teeth to regrow. The treatment can also be used on children to prevent tooth decay developing. The treatment involves using a laser to detect the extent of decay inside a tooth. Normally, a dentist will use a drill to get access to decay in a tooth, and then drill or scrape it out before filling the cavity. Here, ozone gas is applied direct to the decayed tooth without drilling it or anesthetizing the mouth. A few seconds of ozone gas is enough to kill 99% of the microorganisms that cause decay. The device uses a suction cap and recovery device to prevent any gas leaking into the mouth. The cavity can be left while the tooth remineralizes, or a filling can be applied. Dentists are hoping the principle can be applied to other dental problems. They want to use ozone to disinfect areas of infection within the mouth, for instance in gum disease and root canal therapy. Using the ozone to disinfect those sites will also aid the healing process. The treatment takes less than a minute per tooth, compared with at least half an hour for conventional drilling and filling. Follow-up treatment is sometimes necessary to make sure all the decay is killed. Natural saliva in the mouth will help the tooth repair itself, but special mouthwashes and toothpaste also speed up the process. In recent years, airline passengers have become alarmed by the dangers of developing fatal blood clots while flying. Those most at risk are those who have had major surgery on the legs or hip replacements. They develop deep vein thrombosis, or DVT. For many, the condition is hard to spot. Some say the first inkling of pain was in their calf. The consequences can be dire. The cause of death? Pulmonary embolism. A blood clot forms in the limb, breaks away and travels up to the lungs, which can fatally block a blood vessel. UK doctors say more people are now at risk as hip operations increase dramatically. The current extent of hip and knee operations in the UK is around 200,000 per year. In Europe alone, over 400,000 people a year fracture their hip, and in 50 years' time, by the year 2050, this number could more than double. Up to 30% of orthopedic patients can develop DVT, and 1 in 50 could die as a result. Current methods to prevent it are derived from, of all things, pigs' intestines. It's called whiplash and is the most common injury in car crashes. Even shunts from behind at slow speed can cause painful neck damage which is difficult to treat. Researchers say most drivers don't put their head restraints high enough to stop the whiplash effect. But it's not just the driver's fault. Motor researchers have found that 1/4 of cars in Britain don't have adequate head restraints. There are no figures for the many older and second-hand cars that are on the roads. Manufacturers who score poorly generally do because there's a large back set, in other words, a large distance between the back of the head and the front of the head restraint. And often the head restraint doesn't lock. With 2,000 drivers a year in the UK suffering permanent neck damage from whiplash, researchers are urging manufacturers and drivers alike to use their heads to save their necks. Coronary bypass surgery using veins from a patient's leg is routine now, but it's not a permanent answer to heart disease. A year after surgery, 15% of new blood vessels will have clogged again. Professor Qingbo Xu and his team at St George's have found that 60% of these cells come from the bypassed vein. The St George's team is looking at ways to pre-treat the vein to prevent or at least delay the recurrence of disease. Genetic techniques look most promising. If they treat the disease with a drug, it may not be so effective after a period of time. Gene transfer may be more helpful. That alone won't stop all recurrence of heart disease because some of these cells come from the blood circulation, a much trickier candidate for treatment. The current opinion is that you would have to treat the vein locally, but they might at least have to think about other forms of treatment, because not all cells that form the lesion are actually derived from the local environment. Professor Xu will start clinical trials as soon as possible. he hopes to eventually spare 15% of heart patients the need for painful and dangerous repeat surgery. Radiotherapy is an effective cure for many cancers, but if the tumour is resistant to radiotherapy, this treatment will only waste valuable time, expose patients to needless X-rays, and damage the cells around the tumour, making subsequent surgery more difficult. Until now, there was no way of knowing in advance whether a cancer will respond to radiotherapy. Here at Leicester University, scientists think they found a way to do just that. Cells taken from tumours of the bladder which have been exposed to X-rays are examined under the microscope to see the effect on the cell structure. The little dots are individual cancer cells, and the more the cell is damaged by the radiation, the bigger the comet-like plume of yellow DNA leaks out. What scientists are looking to find if there is a correlation between comet, the extent of comet formation, and whether the patient is cured by radiotherapy. If they do see a good correlation between measures of comet formation and outcome for the patient, then they have developed a predictive test for tumour cell radiosensitivity in this cancer. The idea is that by measuring the extent of the damage to the irradiated cells, doctors will get an accurate picture of how well the tumour will respond to radiotherapy, and so help them decide whether surgery would be a better option. So far, the Leicester team has only worked on bladder cancers, but the COMET test could work on other tumours too. Previously, the only way to test tumour cells was to grow them in culture, but it takes days and is hit and miss. If successful, it will provide the first dependable guide for doctors in choosing cancer treatments for their patients. Four years ago, Jesse Sullivan, a lineman for a Tennessee power company, grabbed a high-tension wire carrying 7,400 volts of electricity, which incinerated his arms to the shoulders. With the help of an experimental prosthetic limb and a set of rewired nerves, this 58-year-old double amputee can feel and even pick up a glass of water. Sullivan's new arm holds promise for amputees and people with spinal cord injuries. The cutting-edge technology called neural engineering is literally connecting people to machines. Now, Sullivan can think about bending his arm or closing his hand, and electrodes in his chest pick up those impulses and activate his highly experimental robotic arm. And the transplanted nerves do more than just drive the arm, they also carry sensations. Researchers say the new bionic arm isn't cheap. The prototype will cost more than $7 million. British medical researchers have taken a major step towards identifying the gene which makes us grow older. This gene is the major factor in not only why we age, but also in vulnerability to disease. This gene controls the telomere length, or the life of each human cell. Analysing the sequence of telomere length is bringing fresh insight into possible treatment of other diseases apart from heart disease. Though dramatically referred to as the death clock gene, this still-to-be-discovered gene, among the analysis of DNA sequences, could be a major turning point in human biology. From this, there is the possibility of influencing the process and retarding such things as cancerous cells, for example. Tracing a lone gene in our body shows every sign of being one of the medical landmarks of the 21st century. Urinary stress incontinence, or USI, is an embarrassing and all too common condition that forces many women to suffer in silence. It happens when the pelvic floor, the muscles that support the internal female organs, is weakened. It causes urine leakage, especially under strain like laughing, sneezing or exercising. Marathon runner Barbara suffered for years, trying almost every treatment from Kegel exercises to a urethra plug to medication. Finally, Barbara found out about a new treatment called tension-free support through this GeneCare TVT device. It's a mesh-like tape that is inserted under the urethra inside the pelvic floor and provides extra support during straining. The procedure takes about half an hour and is usually performed under local anesthesia. Barbara recovered totally in about 2 weeks. Due to advances in science and medical research, humans are living longer, especially in the developed world. But a longer life comes at a price. It's estimated that an individual living to the age of 85 has a 40% chance of developing Alzheimer's disease. Already there are 18 million people throughout the world suffering from dementia, and experts predict that by 2025, that number will have doubled. Professor Clive Ballard is co-director of the Wolfson Centre for Age-Related Diseases at King's College in London. He's working towards developing better treatments that prevent, resolve and reduce the consequences of some of the symptoms of these common diseases. He says there are alternatives to the overuse of sedatives in the management of dementia, as there is increasing evidence that these drugs actually accelerate cognitive decline. Staff at the centre hope their research will significantly speed up the process of developing new treatments for these diseases, reducing the medical and pharmaceutical costs of old age, but more importantly, improve the quality of life. There is yet another use for the popular cholesterol-lowering statin drug Lipitor. California researchers at Stanford University say that Lipitor and drugs like it may have a role in the treatment of multiple sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases. Mice prone to MS showed a reversal of symptoms including paralysis in chronic forms of the disease after being fed daily doses of Lipitor. Multiple sclerosis occurs when the body's immune system attacks the protective myelin sheath which surrounds nerve fibers in the brain and spine. According to US researchers, drinking and eating more dairy products may help reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes and heart disease. The benefits of a dairy-rich diet were seen over a 10-year period amongst the overweight group, who were 70% less likely to develop insulin resistance syndrome if they ate 5 or more servings of dairy products a day. And there is another strike against the popular high-protein diet. Researchers at the University of Connecticut warn that super protein diets place such an additional strain on kidneys they can cause dehydration in even the most fit athletes. Scientists conducting blood tests on athletes 3 weeks into their diets confirmed that a high-protein diet led to a progression of hypohydration, causing a greater strain on the kidney. That's because high-protein diets lead to a buildup of nitrogen in the blood, and the excessive urination triggered by additional protein can easily lead to a hypohydrated state, even without symptoms. Lynn Kreminga, a high-powered New York executive, is taking time out of her hectic day for a bite of lunch, a chat with friends, and an injection of Botox. More and more, people like Kreminga are gathering in groups for injections of the wrinkle-shrinking bacteria. Botox works to lessen lines by weakening or paralysing the muscles that are injected. Kreminga, who says she's 50 years old, has had Botox injections a couple of times already. The US Food and Drug Administration approved Botox as a cosmetic treatment for wrinkles, although it has been used off-label for years. It's derived from the same toxin that causes botulism, a sometimes fatal food poisoning. But Dr. Soren White says there has never been a case of botulism caused by a cosmetic Botox injection. He says the most common side effects include redness, swelling, and sometimes bruising. And it's not just ladies with lines that come to Botox parties. Young women without visible signs of aging are getting the injections to prevent wrinkles from forming. Botox injections are the #1 cosmetic procedure in the United States, and people in the business expect the popularity of Botox to increase as individuals get more comfortable with the procedure and these Fountain of Youth injection celebrations. According to the British Heart Foundation, as many as 1 in 8 Britons will be diagnosed with heart-related diseases during their lifetime. Once a diagnosis has been made, there are effective treatments available. But until now, making an effective analysis of the images taken during an ultrasound scan at the heart has been problematic. A team at Oxford University have developed software which allows for a more accurate reading. This computer software took 8 years to perfect. The scientists have been working on developing more robust methods that can be used, particularly in a clinical context. What this means is that scientists can extract features from the ultrasound data and define better ways of tracking the object of interest, which in this case is the heart, over an image sequence. This new software is currently only being used for clinical research, but it is hoped that over the years it will be used routinely in hospitals. Desiree Moore is deathly afraid of water bugs, commonly known as cockroaches. She's come to psychologist Dr. Harvey Baker's office at Queen's College in New York City to seek treatment using the emotional freedom technique. This controversial therapy starts with a few questions. Then Moore is asked to approach a container of bugs 1 step at a time. She's asked to rate her level of fear from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most afraid. She's able to look at the bug from about a foot away, her fear factor a 7. Then she turns away in disgust. Then comes the experimental therapy. It's a series of self-affirmations, tapping, rubbing, and songs. Dr. Baker admits the emotional freedom technique looks ridiculous. But he says 2 out of 3 people make progress with their phobias following the therapy. Dr. Baker has tested this technique on 24 phobic patients. He's treated people who fear anything from spiders to rats, to heights to tight spaces. Baker says about 11% of the American population suffers from some form of phobia. After half an hour of the therapy, Moore approaches the container of water bugs again. She was not able to come closer to the bugs, but she said after the treatment, she may now be able to take a couple of breaths before running away. While it's not much progress, it's something, and Moore is happy to be 1 step closer, if only in her mind, to confronting her fear. Medical students and staff at the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham have been honing their skills on mannequins that respond electronically like a real human patient. Practicing on these dummies protects real patients, and students can repeat the same procedure over again without searching for another human patient with the same condition. But working on mannequins has limitations, and Nottingham University students have developed a groundbreaking virtual reality simulator that allows surgeons to practice the most delicate life-saving operations. The prototype is the first of its kind to combine advanced computer graphics with technology that gives students and surgeons the same feelings through their remote control instruments as real-time surgery. This pioneering system could lead to a groundbreaking development for medicine around the world. As remote control technology develops, surgeons may soon be able to operate on patients from an office or anywhere in the world. Improving training, safety and surgical techniques, the Nottingham University team's project may also lead to a revolution in the way surgery is performed. Young men who are quick to lose their temper may be in danger of losing their lives too. A study from Johns Hopkins University reports that young men who react to stress with anger are more likely to have heart problems. This research began in 1946 and followed more than 1,300 medical students for 50 years. Students' self-reported anger levels did have a long-term effect on their coronary health. While other studies have linked anger more immediately to heart attacks, this is the first to show its effects on health even 20 or 30 years later, regardless of other risk factors. While they don't fully understand the connection between anger and early coronary disease, researchers believe the anger may release extra adrenaline into the system, constricting blood vessels and forcing the heart to work harder. Researchers now hope to find out if intervention through anger management training would head off heart trouble. Becky Foster is 24 years old and has already had 4 fibroadenomas or benign breast tumours removed. The first 3 surgeries left her sore, swollen and scarred. When Foster discovered she had a 4th tumour weeks before her wedding, she didn't want to go through another operation. Her doctor offered Foster a new, less invasive alternative called the Vesica treatment. It's done in the doctor's office using what's called cyroablation. A probe about the size of a match is inserted into the tumour and applies extreme cold to it. It requires only a local anaesthetic, and Becky Foster was awake and talking to Kaufman during the procedure. Fibroadenomas are the most common form of benign breast tumour, and about 2/3 of women have chosen to have them surgically removed. The Vesica system is now being tested for treating cancerous breast tumours as well. Cardiac surgeons at Auckland Hospital have created a device which could potentially extend the lives of people with heart failure. Surgeons have fitted a 56-year-old New Zealand man with a device which acts as blood pressure cuff for the heart. The device called the C-Pulse was implanted and uses an electrical component to stimulate blood flow around the heart, but it does not replace the heart entirely. Dr. Paget Milsom and Dr. William Peters say the man, who has lived with heart failure for a decade, has had no difficulty with the cuff. He was the first person to be fitted with the device. Milsom, one of the surgeons involved with its development, says the benefit of the cuff is that it allows patients to externally control its function. Wires run from the cuff through the abdomen and are attached to a belt at the patient's waist. This is different from a pacemaker, which cannot be controlled externally. The cuff offers those suffering from heart failure with a potentially lower risk option. Typically, patients suffering from heart failure have 2 choices: to either have a heart transplant or to have a pacemaker implanted. The unique aspect of this device is that it is primarily out of the bloodstream. This means you reduce the risk of eternal bleeding and blood clotting. The cuff also would eliminate the need for heart bypass surgery in certain patients. According to Dr. William Peters, over the next few years, many more patients are slotted to be fitted with this cuff. The doctors expect the cuff will spend several years in clinical trials and hopefully will be approved for widespread use in the not too distant future. What do a Japanese businessman, a housewife in Hong Kong, and a US Marine have in common? They all suffer from some sort of stress, be it pressure to increase business deals, look after small children, or live with the fear of violence at every turn. Japanese medical equipment manufacturer Nippro Corporation hopes to help these and other stressed people around the world with the creation of the Kokoro Meter, a portable gadget which measures stress levels using saliva. The enzyme amylase is a barometer for stress. The larger the stress, the more amylase appears in blood and saliva. The stress check is done by placing the tip of the sensor chip into the person's mouth. The saliva sample collected on the chip is then put into the machine until the analyzing process is finished and a reading appears on the monitor on the face of the gadget. The ratings range between 10, the lowest, and 150, which is the maximum level possible. Company executives thought the gadget could be useful in making better business decisions. Sadly though, this battery-powered gadget, or heart meter, will not include instructions on how to reduce stress. Eating out can be a perilous activity if you're one of the unfortunate few who suffer from a food allergy. Allergens may be difficult to spot in a dish, and the effects of an adverse reaction can be serious. Sesame seeds are present in many popular Middle Eastern dishes such as hummus or tahini. The problem has been the focus of a study by researchers, and scientists say they may have found a way to neutralize a sesame seed protein that causes an allergen reaction. Although the scientists focused on sesame, they say the technology could be used to deactivate allergens in milk and other common foods like peanuts. This breakthrough could bring benefits to millions of people around the world. In the United States alone, more than 11 million people suffer from food allergies. This research was carried out by Naomi Wolf, who works in the Institute's Food Engineering and Biotechnology Department. Scientists identified the part of a protein that causes the allergy, then used high-frequency sound waves to pulverize the sesame seed molecules and create an allergy-free product. In 95% of the cases, the allergic qualities were completely neutralized with no change in the seed's flavor, color, or texture. The team tested the technique on rats. The Institute said a second group were fed the treated sesame and showed no reaction. The team is now turning its attention to nuts and milk. The days of traditional long incision coronary bypass surgeries may soon become a thing of the past, thanks to the help of a three-limbed robot called Da Vinci. Unlike traditional bypass procedures that require a surgeon to cut the breastbone and open the ribcage, Da Vinci allows doctors to perform the same procedure in openings not much larger than a felt tip marker. Dr. Fazad Najam, a cardiovascular surgeon at the George Washington Hospital in Washington, D.C., performs heart surgery while sitting at a control console. From there, he directs the robot's arms and miniature cameras remotely. The cameras allow a three-dimensional view from inside the patient's body. Dr. Najam operates the cameras with foot pedals, zooming in and out to change the surgical view instantly. The robotic arms maneuver surgical instruments through incisions, mimicking Dr. Najam's own hand movements, while allowing for extreme precision. The operation is performed without the use of the heart and lung machine on a beating heart. One of the benefits is that the patient does not have to be on the pump for the surgery. There is a smaller incision, faster recovery, less pain. If it wasn't for the robotic arm, doctors would not be able to do those technically difficult and precise maneuvers. Najam says the tiny incisions produce less surgical trauma compared to conventional CABG, resulting in a shorter hospital stay and a faster return to normal activities. More than 500,000 bypass procedures are performed each year in the United States. For the first time, US scientists say they are able to identify and block 2 cellular enzymes that the deadly Ebola virus must have to reproduce. Blocking those enzymes on cells in the lab disabled the virus so it lost most of its infectivity. This finding could lead to treatments for the virus that kills more than 90% of its victims within 2 weeks. Currently, there is no cure for this devastating disease that occurs in periodic outbreaks in equatorial Africa. They say the way the Ebola virus infects its host is unique and very different than HIV and other deadly viruses. Senior author James M. Cunningham, MD, and his colleagues discovered 2 cellular enzymes that the Ebola virus co-opts and uses to cut up one of the virus surface proteins. Once this protein is snipped apart, the virus is free to begin multiplying. The scientists applied broad-spectrum enzyme inhibitors to mammalian cells before exposing them to the Ebola virus. When one specific cellular enzyme, cathepsin B, was inhibited, the infectivity of the Ebola virus dropped to near zero. There's an old saying, necessity is the mother of invention, and it certainly is true for Monty Reed. Over 20 years ago, doctors told him he might never walk again. And Monty not only proved the doctors wrong, he proceeded to work tirelessly on a way to help others facing what he faced. He built a walking machine that he calls the Life Suit. And he took his chance to prove his invention at an event where you need all the mobility you can get, the St. Patrick's Day race. It is a meticulous and time-consuming routine. Velcro straps are wrapped around his shoes, legs and body, all to hold this contraption in place. The air from the oxygen tank pushes him along. After the air runs out of the tank, Reed is on his own, but he still manages to finish the 3 miles. Reed says he's getting only encouragement from the medical community and is now working to fine-tune his life suit to prepare for rigorous medical trials he knows will come soon. After an accident in which he broke his back, Reed was inspired by a science fiction book to create a robot suit to help him walk. He hopes his invention will eventually become a dream come true for those who thought they might never be able to walk.